In 1954, Brown versus the Board of Education was passed. Chief Justice Oral Warren wrote that separate but equal is no longer constitutional, thus overturning an 1896 ruling in Plessy versus Ferguson that first established separate but equal in regards to segregation. This was the beginning of desegregation in public schools. In 1958, Congress passed the National Defense Act in response to the Soviets placing Sputnik into outer space. Our military and legislative leaders blamed our inferior education system. The NDEA approximately put $1 billion into the education system, creating new new science programs. This drastically increased public enrollment in public education. In 1950, about 25 million children were in public schools, and by 1970, 50 million were in public schools.
This is about the Education for All Handicapped Children Act. This was enacted by United States Congress in 1975. This was passed to help ensure that special education services are provided to all students for a fair balance and appropriate practices. This is also helped to guarantee about decisions with services to all students with disabilities that are fair and appropriate. This is also a way to establish management and auditing requirements for special education purposes. Also, this is to provide federal funds to help the states educate their students with disabilities. Now, EHA was revised and renamed as Individuals with Disabilities Education Act in 1990 for improvement of special education and inclusive education.
During the 80s and 90s, the push to reform schools transformed teaching in substantial ways. Teachers went above and beyond their field, assuming leadership roles in the restructuring of schools and educational reform. A few challenges education faced in the 90s were the need for greater diversity, deregulation of schools, and less support for public education. Some responses to those challenges were multicultural reform, school restructuring, charter schools, and privatization of education.